Hello, this is Bratt from Eurogamer, and I wanted to talk about the new heroes that were introduced to Overwatch yesterday. I've gone hands-on with each of the 3 characters, played a couple of games, and I thought I could give some initial impressions as to how they controlled and how they also fit into Overwatch in a wider sense. Or at least the beta, anyway. Starting out with Diva, who is the excellent pro StarCraft 2 player who rides around in a giant pink mech. I've got so much time for that. You start the game in that mech, and that means that your primary attack will be these big dual cannons, which you don't ever need to reload, but when you use them, you're moving much more slowly. They also don't do a whole lot of damage, especially any kind of range. But really, Diva isn't necessarily all about that. She's a tank character. She's got loads of armor and some interesting abilities. So, one of those interesting abilities is the boosters, which is your left shift, and this forces you forwards, it makes you move much more quickly, and you can also control the direction of those boosters, which means you can use them to fly, at least for a few seconds. And importantly, they have a knockback. If you hit an enemy whilst you're boosting, they are forced back, and that can be really useful when you're engaging in group fights. Now, with Diva being a character that rides around in a giant pink mech and also boosts into combat and knocks people back, you're going to be something of a target. You want to be something of a target. That's sort of your role within the game. And one of the ways you can kind of stay alive whilst being the target is using Defense Matrix, which is your E ability, and that stops all projectiles as long as you're facing them. It also looks really cool. And finally, her ultimate, which is a self-destruct and seems really freaking good, by the way. Not necessarily for getting kills, although I did manage to grab a couple of multi-kills during the games that I was playing. Humble brag there. But rather, it's really, really good for controlling a big area, because the blast radius of this self-destruct is massive, and any characters that stay within it are probably going to die. So in terms of like capturing points, it's amazing. Importantly, however, you yourself can be hit by that ultimate, and so when you do use the self-destruct, you need to run away along with everyone else, or things are probably going to go bad. But you know, your teammates can come in as you do that and capture an area. I think that's going to be one of Diva's most important roles in the game. So when out of the mech suit, Diva has a blaster pistol, 150 HP, and no normal abilities. She's really weak, but you do have this kind of new ultimate. I think that's still the right word to use, I guess. And this charges up really, really quickly. In fact, if you get a kill with your blaster pistol, that's probably going to be enough to charge it up. And that allows you to call in a new mech suit, a new giant, ridiculous pink mech suit. So yeah, the whole idea is, although you're squishy, if you're quick, you can try and call in a mech and get back in the action straight away. Now, that happens when you self-destruct, as I said. It also happens when your mech is killed. So if you, if you get caught out and your mech loses all its HP, you are forced out of that and you're now running around on foot, which is weird, and is perhaps the only thing that I wasn't crazy about with Diva was when I was fighting against her, and it takes quite a lot of work to take out the mech because of the sheer amount of armor that you're going through, and then it seems, I don't know, it's a little bit disheartening when that happens. You take out the mech and then Diva, the actual character, manages to run off and escape. But that's the only issue I seem to have with Diva. She's just a very cool character, probably one of the best visual ideas for an Overwatch character, which is saying something, but you know, a giant pink mech is pretty cool. Moving on to Genji, who once again has an interesting ultimate ability in the fact that you don't really use his blade, at least on his back, outside of this ult. So from a character perspective, I like the idea that he'll only unsheath it when things are really kicking off, and from a gameplay point of view, it means that this sword can do loads of damage. When you do eventually use it, it feels powerful. Usually, outside of this, you'll be using his Shuriken. Is that how you say it? Shuriken? That doesn't sound right. Using his ninja stars. Left click has you throwing 3 of them in a straight line, and right click does 3 in like kind of an arc. Perhaps there'll be moments, that certain group fights, where you'll want to do that, but really I focused on the left click because Genji is just really quite good at taking out individual characters, and this seemed the best way to do it. If you can hit with all 3 ninja stars, you can do quite a good amount of damage. You can temporarily deflect enemy fire, which is kind of excellent. It just looks really, really cool, and that's important. And actually, every time I used it during the games that I played, the other player just completely freaked out, didn't really know how to deal with that. I guess the best way to kind of counter it is to move closer and go for a melee attack. But yeah, no one really thought to do that. You've also got his dash, which is called Swift Strike, and this is a really important ability for Genji. Obviously, it's good to get close to his opponents, especially if you're about to pop your ultimate, But on top of that, if you do dash through an enemy, you give them a bleeding effect, so they're going to slowly take damage over time. And also, if you do manage to kill that enemy, your cooldown for the dash resets immediately, and so you can use it again. It's a really great way for Genji to move around very, very quickly. And as I said, he's just good at taking out individual opponents, so you want to often start a fight by using Swift Strike through them. And yeah, he's just quite a lot of fun. Outside of popping the ultimate, I did struggle with taking on more than one opponent at a time, but individually, he's probably one of the best. And last but not least, we've got Mei. Mei was my favourite of the 3 characters that have been introduced, easily. And I think that's because I'm a huge fan of her Ice Wall ability in particular. You can block off entire routes that the enemy wants to use. You can provide cover, even if it's destructible cover. That's really useful. Pretty sure I ruined a Widowmaker's game using this character. Every time they popped up to take some shots at my team, an Ice Wall would appear in front of them, and they didn't really know how to cope with that. She's amazing, by the way, for helping your team move payloads, just because often the defending team will have a certain setup where they've got maybe a Bastion to one side or a Widowmaker or something like that, and they're holding the area by just staying relatively stationary and just focusing their fire in a certain direction. Ice Wall really helps stop that. Yeah, she's just got so much control, which raises an interesting point. Her standard attack, for example, slows enemy and eventually freezes them in place. Her ultimate, called Blizzard, of course it's called Blizzard, is a big AoE that does a similar thing. It slows them and I can eventually freeze them. Is that too much? I don't know yet. It just feels like an awful lot of control. Sure, Mei's damage output is pretty weak, although her right-click attack fires an icicle, which is a little more substantial, but overall, she's not a damage character, but combined with a team that know what they're doing and that can do damage, this hero brings so much to the game. This is the first one that's really focused this heavily on crowd control, so it'll kind of be interesting to see how that fits into the beta at the moment. I think you want this character on every team, but maybe I'm getting a little bit carried away. Also, she's really freaking hard to kill. Her Ice Block ability, which makes her invulnerable and also heals her, means that when things do start to go bad and when the other team realizes how much control you have a way of surviving that and allowing your team to come in and save you. Yeah, Mei is great. Really, really good. And so there we are. That's another 3 interesting characters, another 3 very unique characters being added to the mix. And despite the issues that we brought up yesterday about how heroes will perhaps be sold in the future, we really don't know. As it stands, these 21 starting heroes that the game is launching with, there aren't many that I dislike, and there aren't many that feel similar to each other, which is a huge thing, something that really makes Overwatch appeal to me. And these 3 characters really fit into that. Alright, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them. And yeah, I'll be at BlizzCon for the rest of the day, so you can probably expect a bunch more stuff over the coming week. And yeah, better go play some video games. Thanks.